And I think we're live. Now, just while I'm cracking my stubby, I'll put this video on. I just wanted to explain a little bit about this so you can see what's going on. This video that I'm actually going to play for you is shot with the A7 III. And I've used two lenses. I used the GM 24mm, which you'll notice a lot of it is shot with the 24 GM. And also it's using the Zeiss Batis 85. So the close-ups, you're looking at the Zeiss Batis 85. And the other thing too is the gimbal was the Rowan RS2 that I showed last week. So just while I go and crack it, I'll switch over and you can listen to this. I'll talk to you all again in a minute.
Young, and we didn't want to be exposed. Even though it was cold, we were never wearing proper clothes. Always trying to be cool, trying to be those bad guys, smoking cigarettes behind the school. Always trying to be cool, trying to be those bad guys, you know. I still think about what we had when we were younger. We were never running out of time. As long as we had each other, oh, everything was black and white. Driving in a car, never knowing how far we go. When we were younger, a girl, I would sneak into her parents' house. I could stay for hours, and we looked into each other's eyes. Hey, I thought I was Romeo, I was looking for my Juliet. And as soon as I left, I told my friends. Those days made me who I am. When we were younger, we were never running out of time. As long as we had each other, oh, everything was black and white. Driving in a car, never knowing how far we go. When we were younger, when we were younger. As long as we had each other, oh, everything was black and white. When we were younger.
There we go. Now that is, g'day everyone. So I've cracked it. I've cracked my stubby. So, g'day everyone, back again for our usual Friday show for the Americans. It's Saturday here in Australia, but it's Friday for everyone else. Yeah, so that video, particular, I wanted to explain too something about that which is really special. I'm going to probably do a video about it, but cheers. Here we go. Let the show begin. I'll watch, and I'll have to find the guy's name again because he's put up a video about how to set your A7 III and your A7 III for cinitone. Now, I know they don't have a cinitone profile in them, But he has worked out the exact settings that you can put into your camera, and it gives you almost exactly the same. And he did comparisons between, I think it was an FS6 or something, and the profile that he created. And I put that in. I just put it under profile 9 or profile, it was profile 9, I think. And I have put his settings in, and it does give you a beautiful look straight out of the camera. Now, there was a little bit of grading in that, but the colors that it gets out of the camera, I put a LUT on it. But apart from that, it doesn't need anything. It was basically corrected, and it looks beautiful straight out of the camera. And it also matches the cinitone almost perfectly. So I'll have to do a video, because I should give a shout out to him. He's an English guy. If I can remember it, I'll put it in the link down below. But it was beautiful. So that's how that was shot. And the color itself, like coming out of the camera, it was really interesting, because I won't sort of show that all again, but let me just sort of try and get little bits. The color looked like straight out of the camera, considering it was so low light, I think were beautiful. You know, like if you look in here, let me just play this again. If you look in here, you can sort of see it's just beautiful colours straight out of the camera, basically. It's just got a LUT on top of it, but it's beautiful. Like, so that profile that this guy made is awesome, and he needs a shout out. I mean, I know his YouTube subscribers have gone way up since he put this out, and so he should, but because there's a lot of settings and a lot of trial and error that he had to actually put into this, and it took ages for him to obviously get that, but it's stunning what he's got out of that camera. And like I said, now if you bought the A1, for instance, that has cinitone built into it, you can match it perfectly. And he did a split screen every shot. Thank you so much, Eric. Yeah, it was every shot is his channel if you wanted to check that out. And I put those settings in. This was the first shoot that I actually did do using that profile. Normally I would shoot with S-Log, but I decided this time to just shoot with that profile and just see how it went. And I'm wrapped in how it actually looks. Like, it's beautiful straight out of camera with very little processing. Like I said, apart from the LUT that I put over this, everything was basically straight out of camera. It was almost dead spot on with exposure. I just had to really slightly adjust occasionally the highlight or the shadow, and everything came out beautiful. He's really funny, Eric. Yeah, he's great. And like, to say, like, these sort of shots straight out of camera are just gorgeous. So I'm not even sure how much I'll even use log anymore. I suppose, look, if there's really high dynamic range, I probably will use the logs, particularly if it's in a wedding or something. I don't even know if I'm going to use it in weddings now, because I'm really happy with how this turns out. Now, I'm hoping Sony brings out an S-Log, a cinitone LUT, and I think they probably will for the A7 III. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen hopefully fairly soon. But you can see here it's even quite contrasted when the light came in through there. So yes, you do lose, I think you said you lose about a stop of dynamic range. So if you still want to get the ultimate in dynamic range, it's what was filmed for yourself or commit. No, this is actually, I'm going to shoot these guys their wedding in 2 weeks' time. So this is their engagement shoot. They paid for this. So I think I'm probably going to use this footage, this sort of cinitone setup from now on. And if you do, like I said, if you did want to get the A1 or say using the FS7 or the FS cameras that have Cinilog built in, then profiles will match up perfectly, and that's going to be one of the problems before. Now, he's also done this for the A7 III as well. So you can match up the A7 III, you can match up the A7S III, and you can also match up the A1 to now the FX cameras as well. And I think that's an amazing thing that he's done here, and I wanted to give him a shout out. Thanks for that, Eric, too. Yeah, so it's every shot. So check his channel out, and he gives you the full settings that you need to put in. Like I said, this was the first shot or shoot that I used that profile, and I am wrapped. Like, it's so much easier than having to go and sort of process log files and everything else. So really big shout out to Extrashot. I'll stick the link underneath if I can find it, and so you can sort of go there if you do have an A7 III or an A7S III. Unfortunately, you can't do it on the A9 because there's no picture profiles, but you can certainly now match the A7 III, A7S III to the FX cameras as well. You know, and get that straight out of camera look that's beautiful. So yeah, so this wasn't commissioned for myself. No, this was a paid shoot. Like I said, I've got their weddings in 2 weeks, so it's going to be fantastic. Yes, Julian, definitely check it out. It's amazing. And like I said, he tested, it must have taken an awful lot of practice to get that profile correct. And he does split screens, and he shows cinitone on one side and this on the other side, and they are basically identical. So what he's done is incredible. So if Sony don't release S-cinitone, this profile he's created is just as good. It really is that close to it. So watch his video if you haven't seen it. But I'd like to thank him anyway. I don't know if he watches me, but I mean, I'd like to thank him anyway because I'm so happy with how that video came out. I think it's just beautiful. So we are in pre-show at the moment, guys. I'm just going to check over in the comments to see what people are saying. If you don't want to watch the whole show, click down. If you're watching later on, I will put the timeline down below as well. I just want to see who's in here. Oh, I see 13 just said hello. Do I really need 8K? Well, I'll talk about that in a minute, Shadows. Mike retracted a message. I don't know what that was. Gilbert's off to bed, but he did say give a thumbs up. Mike said, I'm hoping Canon makes a development announcement for the R1 next week. Well, hopefully they will soon. It'll be interesting. That camera probably will be amazing. I mean, I think they would have learnt a lot from the R5. Carol said hello as well. Hero's also saying hello. Canon got wrecked already. Hero's staying. Steve's in here as well. G'day, Steve. How you going? Hero said, oops, darn caps. What does that mean? Ralph said hello all. Hero says, oh, okay, he's going to crack one as well. High West Campfire's here as well. Guy with cameras also here. G'day, mate. DL celebrating my first vaccine dose this morning. Well done. We're meant to start next month, I believe, sometime next month. But then again, we really don't have any cases, so I suppose there's not any hurry here. Julian, what's up, guys? Shadow says, I've tried drinking the Coronas, but it's so 80s. Samuel Adams, mate. I've never had a Samuel Adams. Scissorman's here as well. G'day, buddy. G'day, buddy. Eric said the guy's channel is Extrashot. Yeah, so check out Extrashot if you want to get an idea about those profiles. They're really good, and he does have a great sense of humour. Was that filmed yourself or commissioned? No, I filmed that all myself, Raymond. So, yeah, I did everything there, all on my own. Yeah, so, I mean, Kerry was with me. But I did all the filming. She just sort of was there with me on the day because we had a wedding meeting at the same time. They're a beautiful couple. I can't wait to shoot their wedding. I think it's down the coast in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm so excited. That's my first wedding back from the virus. So this is the first one I've done for almost 12 months. So I'm really excited. Came in late. What camera was that? It was the A7S III that I filmed that video with. I absolutely adore that camera, honestly. You know, I was sort of thinking the other day, I'm getting so much into video now that I'm not even sure if I will buy an A1, even though it's incredible, but the money that they're asking for that camera is really expensive here in Australia. I think if I was going to buy another camera now at the moment, I'd buy another A7S III. Because I want to get more and more into weddings. And I think when I say weddings, wedding videography, and I think I'm going to probably start to shoot wedding videography as well, like full on. I've never done that before. I've always done just fusion, which is shooting at the same time. But I think now that things are getting so hard to get work and stuff that I might, and also I love it, I think I might start offering weddings, full on wedding videography. And so I think if I was probably going to buy another camera at the moment, I probably would buy another A7S III. I adore that camera. I shot that all in 4K 60. So that's how that was all shot. And then obviously I can slow that down. So really that's changed everything for me. I don't need 8K, but I'll talk about that in a minute as well. But I don't personally need 8K at this stage. And like I said, I always crop pretty close. But the 4K 60 for me is like a perfect shooting sort of format that I like to use, because then it gives me the ability to go down to 25p if I want to. Well, it's actually 4K 50 I did it because we're in Australia and we use the PAL system. So I think that's probably the way I'll go, but I'll talk about that when I go talking about the 8K, because the 8K footage from the Sony A1 looks like it's absolutely incredible. So yes, that was the A7S III, Julian. DK Hook said hi as well. Timothy said, lovely work, David. Thank you so much, Tim. Axman says, hello from Maryland. Worsley said, cannot find his YouTube ever. I'll see if I can get it down below and I'll post a link to it. So I will stick it down below. Chris said, hello, David. Nice day in Los Angeles. Good Miller Lite day. Jan Michael said, I think the channel is, is it Extrashot? It doesn't matter. I'll find it anyway. I'll find it because I've got that saved, because I saved that video due to the fact of how good that was. And look, I've been dying to get a profile that I could get out of the cameras like the A7 III and the A7S III that just works straight out of camera. I did used to use the standard profile, and that was pretty good as well. Like everyone used to think that I graded them, but I didn't. It was actually just straight out of camera, and then I just did the grading in Final Cut, but very little grading. But this profile is just beautiful. Like I said, if you like that, the new profiles that the Sonys produce, this is it. And it's absolutely perfect. Just let me see. I'll just see if I can find it for you, just so I can put it in the link in case if someone doesn't want to watch later, because I know I've got it saved in my favorites, because I'll stick it in the link just down here. Let me just go to YouTube. Let me go down to watch later, because I'll put the exact video guy down there. Okay, so it is Extrashot. So if you Google this, Extrashot, Extrashot, if you put the search in YouTube for that, you'll find him. And basically, it just says updated cinitone is in there. So let me just open this up for a minute, and I'll just show you. I'll drag it across. I won't put the sound on for this because it'll probably give me a copyright strike. So this is the actual, where'd it go? Ooh. Oh, there it is. Don't know, it disappeared. This is all of his talk that he goes through it about it all. And like I said, he's measured everything, really detailed. And he's gone through everything. So he's incredibly complex what he must have done to bring this profile out. And he takes you through everything, and then he shows you these split screens down here where half of it will be that you can see here that, well, you can't really, because let me move it over and I'll just see if I can show it. It's gone full screen. Oh, it's because I've got that stupid thing on. Let me see if I can make this smaller. There we go. All right, let me just come back a fraction. If you look here, half of the screen is A7S III, you can see there, and the other half is the A7S, the A7 III and the A7S III. Now, he does this later on, and he splits them in half, and he does it with FX cameras and everything else, and the profiles match absolutely perfect. Now, what he does later on, he takes you through every setting that you need to put inside that profile. So this is brilliant. So I'd love to give him a real shout out. Like, he definitely deserves it, and he's a fantastic reviewer as well. So yeah, if you subscribe to him, I'd love it if you could say David Osler sent me here, just so he knows I've given him a shout out. That would be terrific. But have a look at it, and like I said, that profile is unbelievable. So check it out, particularly if you've got an A7 III or an A7S III, to have that ability in the A7 III now to be able to shoot basically cinitone is terrific. It's almost exactly the same. Like I said, it was so close it's not funny. So if you were stressing about not getting that, well, you basically have with those settings. So have a look at it and just see what it's like. What else have we got? Hello from Amabama. Rui said, Julian says, wonder what the A7 IV is going to be like. I think that's going to be incredible. I'm going to talk about that in one of the stories today. Many greetings from author HC Anderson, birthplace, Absence, Denmark. G'day, mate. G'day, Jess. Sam's also here. G'day, Sam. Sony A1 on B&H with EDU discount. I noticed that was a decent discount, actually. So if you have got an EDU, do you need proof for that though? Or is it like the Apple one where they just take your word for it? What else have we got? Julian says, okay, looks it. Okay. Yes, it's Extrashot, my bad. Jeff also said, I read B&H has now removed the A1. Oh, hope they honour the orders that people snuck in. I wonder why they did that. Raymond said, would you choose to not use the new 35GM because of the breathing? Yes. I'm not interested in it. Look, I used to love the 35mm focal length, but now I just love the 24. I mean, look, guys, if you check out on this video, like if you check it, I love the 24 frame of view. That was the baddest. But if you look at the wider angle view that you'll probably see in a second, that's the 24. So I absolutely adore it. I love that. Now, almost 90% of the time when I'm doing weddings and things like that, I'm probably going to keep the 24 on because it's stunning. And the great thing too about the 24, see, even this is the 24, no distortion. That 24 is some magic voodoo-y stuff going on because, look, you wouldn't want to put your subjects out on the edges, but as long as you keep them fairly centered, it's gorgeous. And I love all, this negative space and things like that. So for me personally, let me just stop that. For me personally, I'm not going to be getting the 35. No, and the focus breathing worries me from what I've seen on that. I've never noticed it on the 24, although some people last week's live show said they did notice it. So I haven't noticed that at all. So I think for me, the other beautiful thing too about this is the Sony, the 24GM and the Zeiss Batis that I use for the close-ups are exactly the same weight. So when I stick them onto my gimbal, I don't have to rebalance anything. And that's beautiful. And that's why originally I thought when I did that shoot that I'd grab, say, I will get to the news too, guys, but you might find this interesting. I did really find at the beginning that I was going to use the 24 and then the 55 because that's a really nice sort of focal length as well. And then when I put the 55 onto the gimbal, it was completely out of balance. And I thought, oh, this is a pain because I just wanted to change switch, quickly, like just drag the lens off and put it back on. So I tried the Batis and the Batis 85, and I suppose probably the Sony 85 1.8 would be about the same as well. They weighed almost exactly the same. I mean, I didn't put them on a, to check the weight, but they didn't alter the balance at all. So it's great to be able to just quickly switch between having, say, the 24GM and the Batis as well. And the Batis gives me a lovely field of view. I'm just trying to see if I can see a definite one that I did with the Batis. Let me just check down here. Yeah, this was the Batis. I'll show you the difference. So it'll switch between here where you'll see it go from the 24 to the Batis. So you'll see here how it switches. So that's now gone to the Batis. And you can tell, obviously, too, by the background's nice, and out of focus. But then I've switched back to the 24 again. So it's just beautiful. And even this is the 24. Like the 24 is superb. I still think that, the 24 is probably the best lens that you can stick on a gimbal. I really do believe that. I think it's marvelous. And that lens is quick focusing. There's just nothing that I find that's bad about it. In actual fact, I adore it. It's just superb. Again, here I switched to the Batis as well. And it seems to be a good focal length too that you can not get vibration on the Rowan RS, which is great. As soon as you start to use longer lenses, you can start to get a bit of, movement and stuff like that. But I think what I'm going to do from now on is I'm going to use those two lenses on it. The beauty is too, they both take 67mm filter threads, so I can use the same ND on both, which is superb. And I love that aspect too. So the great thing is now I can have the two lenses ready to go with NDs on them and then just switch them immediately on the gimbal, and I don't have to rebalance anything, so I can just keep shooting. So I'm probably going to work that way now. Like I can get a nice wide sort of field of view with the 24, and then I can also use the Batis 1.8 85 as well, which gives you that gorgeous, background rendering as well that I love. So that's probably the way that I'm going to be going. Julian said, I'm thinking I would get the A7S III and A7 IV when it drops. Thinking about the big files of the A1 might not be a fluid workflow with those file sizes. Yeah, and that's the thing you do have to go through, and I'll talk about that in the review when we go through the A1 as the first thing that we're going to go through, because it is important. It depends whether you think you need it or not, and you'll know whether you need it or not. Heath said, I'm late, but hello, David and friends. G'day, Heath. Mike said, would like to see some reviews comparing A9 and A1 autofocus. I don't think there'll be much difference at all. Look, it's easy to see differences on spec sheets, but I can almost guarantee if you put... I found that when I used the A9 and the A9 too. I honestly could not tell the difference. I don't think you'd see much of a difference at all. I think it will be so close because the A9 and the A9 II are so incredible anyway. So yes, it might be a fraction better, but it's not going to be where you would really probably notice it. And you're probably better off to wait for reviews from people that are not, the Sony ambassadors and stuff like that. All the people that have got those cameras at the moment are obviously all affiliated with Sony. So you're not going to hear anything bad about it at all. So that's one interesting thing. I have heard some people say that yes, it's you notice it, but I don't believe that would be probably the case. I think you're probably going to find that it's going to be incredible. Either camera would be amazing, but hopefully I can get one and I can test that for you. Alex said, how long do you think the A6500 DLSS plus tax will stay like the top of the line camera in the days? I'm not sure, actually, Alex. Guy with the camera said, Phantom LUTs and be there. What's a Phantom LUT? I haven't used that one. Hello from Canada. What do you think of 12 megapixel? I love it. And I'm going to be using that when I'm not shooting video. I am going to use my A7S III for stills and weddings. I used to do that all the time with D3Ss. I can easily get up to 16 by 20 on that. It's all I need. I think it's ample. Sid said, how you doing? G'day, Sid. They just take your word for the Apple discount. Yeah, they do for the Apple, yep. Julian says, love my 24GM. Mark's here as well. G'day, Mark. My 24GM is my favourite lens, just fantastic overall. Mark also said the 24GM is super. Yep, and it does crop to 36. Guy with the camera said GM equals quality. I just love that lens so much. I love my 24GM and the 135. I think the 135 is a little bit long for video though on a gimbal. Like I said, the longer your lens goes, the more you can get vibrations and stuff like that. And you've got to be a lot more careful as you go longer in the length. I tend to find 85 is probably the best that I would like to use without getting real problems and having to be too far away. The 135 would look spectacular on a gimbal though. I might try it one time. 30 frames per second is significant. Yep, it's incredible. Colors are looking great tonight, David. Oh, thanks. That's good. And that's it. George, glad Sony showcased its advanced text for the A1, but I'm waiting for the A7 A7 IV. All right, so let's get stuck into it. I didn't put the timer on again. Oh, for God's sake. Well, it's too late now. I'll just have to try and find them. All right, so let's look at the first story today. Because I wanted to sort of talk about, I think what Sony have done with the 8K, and this is why I laugh. We had lots of discussions. I know Ike used to say no one's going to be using 8K, and I think that's already been proven wrong because of the images that I've seen being put out for the A1 are incredible. The 8K footage particularly is just beautiful. Now, I know it's only 420, but let's face it, the average person is never, ever going to be able to pick the difference between 422 and 420. In fact, you can shoot the A7S III in 420 as well, and you won't really notice it. Where the 422 really comes in if you're doing things like green screening or heavily grading the footage. If you're not doing that, then you don't really have to worry about it, and 420 is often enough. So if you're finding your cards you haven't got enough room on your card, you can use 420 instead of 422. I tend to always shoot 422 though, but like I said, I've done a test and you can't really see the difference. So if I'm doing a wedding, and like I will be in the coming weeks, I might knock that down to 420 and I'll get 5 hours out of the 160 gigabyte Sony Express A card. So I think with 422, it's about an hour and 40 minutes. If I go 420, I think it goes up to 5 hours. So there's a massive difference. I can't remember those figures, but I know there's a massive difference in how you can, what you can get out of it. The other thing is, from what I've noticed, it looks incredibly sharp. Now, people have already processed some of those files, and they do look incredible, and they're talking about now the ability to crop in is also unbelievable, because you can go something like 700% in your Final Cut or DaVinci, whatever you're going to be using. You can go ridiculous in how much you can blow up that 8K footage and still have it incredibly sharp. So the main thing with this, and this is why I said that it crushes the Canon R5, is because the Canon really, the problem with the Canon is the R5's files are ridiculously large. They are ridiculously large, and they are incredibly complex and hard to work on your camera. The Sony files are going to be much better in that regard. Also, it appears, I've watched reviews like Gerald Undone, and he actually said that he was getting really good it did overheat if he didn't put the overheat warning on, but I always turn that on anyway, and I've never found it's a problem. With that turned on, he was basically getting an hour or so of 8K footage before it would possibly overheat. Now, the thing you've got to understand too is, at the moment, Gerald is in a very cold climate, but I think it was, I'm just trying to think who the other reviewer was. He put it in an oven, basically. I think it was Potato Jet. He put it in a oven and it didn't really overheat either. But I think that's a difference too with having direct sun put on it. It'd be interesting to say have it here in Australia's climate where, you know, we get a 30-odd degree day with full sun on it, and then to see how it goes. But I think you'll find that unlike the Canon, the 8K footage that's coming out of the Sony A1 is usable, and that's the big difference. Like when Gerald put a dummy battery in and it was being charged from a V-mount battery, it didn't overheat at all. It went forever, and basically until he said that, I think he gave up in the end. He said it did overcharge with the camera being charged through USB-C. So obviously charging with USB-C adds heat into the camera, and it did overcharge. So if you did want to run continuously, it might be better that you get a dummy battery and run from a V-mount battery, and then you're not going to have those overheating issues. So it seems to be that it's the battery as well as if you're trying to charge it, you know, through the USB slot. So it looks like it is completely usable. Now, the thing I can say too is, who's ever going to be recording 8K at this stage for over an hour anyway? I think 30 minutes is really good. Even 20 minutes. I would have been happy if it did 15 to 20. Even 5 minutes for me probably would have been okay, because, I mean, I would not be shooting long shoots with 8K. Like, it would be just ridiculous, you know. I mean, the file sizes are going to be huge, and also you're going to have issues with storage. You're going to have issues with rendering this stuff in your application and things like that. But to have the ability to shoot 8K and then crop that in on certain shots is unbelievable. And I have to say that Sony have done it right by the look of things. I mean, I'm only going by what the reviewers are showing at this stage, but it does seem to be that, unlike the Canon, the A1's footage is completely usable without any problems that like Canon have, and that is just wonderful. The other massive advantage too with the Sony is you can record this to the 2 card slots at the same time. You can only do it with 1 card slot on the Canon. They don't back each other up. So it's a massive flaw that they added in the R5 that you can't back up. You know, if you're doing a wedding, there's no way I'm going to be shooting a wedding with 1 card slot in there in case if something happens and you're screwed. So to have the ability to shoot 8K on both of the cards, even V90 cards, you don't even need to have the Express A cards. You really only need that for the buffer clearing when you're shooting the 30 megapixel still. So having that ability to shoot the 8K footage and then have it back up is a massive improvement over what Canon have got. It looks like the autofocus is superb, even in 8K. The tracking is superb even in 8K. It looks like the colors are beautiful. You know, you've got the S cinitone that's built into this now, so there's no longer this issue of people saying Canon colors are better. I think that's no longer true at all, particularly if you're dealing with S cinitone, which looks so beautiful straight out of camera. So overall, I think that the Sony A1 does crush it. Now, it should crush it too because it's what, $3,000 dearer. So you would expect it to do that. It's going to be interesting to see what happened when Canon released their new version of that camera, which probably will be much, much closer to what the A1 has. I still don't think it's going to beat it, though, because I still don't think they've got the sensor technology for their quick processing and no rolling shutter to beat that. And I'll talk about that in the review section in a minute when we go to the next story. So that's the reason. I know I'm going to get some hate by saying that the Sony A1 crushes the R5, but I think it does. Looking at from what I've seen, and I have to believe that at this stage. Like I said, I'd love to get my hands on one. I know Greg, who's in the Sony Alpha Melbourne group, has bought one. So I did ask him if I could use the camera, and he was fine about it. So hopefully I can get together with Greg once he gets his order, and then I can go out and test it. And then I can say test it against the A9 and do full autofocus testing between both of them and things like that. Try a little bit of 8K footage and do a review from you from an unbiased perspective. So I'm really looking forward to getting that. So it's really interesting. So I do think 8K, look, it's still at this stage is not really required, but it does future-proof your camera. And I'm dying to try to capture stills from those images, because you get about a 30-odd megapixel still image from that. And I'm dying to try that aspect of it. I haven't seen anyone doing that yet. That would be one of the first things that I'd be doing, because that is an outstanding thing that you might also be able to get as well. But having said that, I mean, you could just choose 30 frames per second and you're shooting faster than video anyway. So, I mean, basically, when you get over 24 frames per second, it's video. Like, these cameras are shooting video. You could put every still together if you wanted to and create a video, which is, I mean, it's mind-boggling what they've done with this camera. So I'll come back to the chat later, because I'd love to know, what you guys think about that. I know Eric said it's not fair to compare the R5 camera to the A1. The Alpha one is incomparable, but we have to sort of compare those two. They're the top two mirrorless cameras at the moment, and that's why I'm comparing them again. Yeah, and it's the stacked sensor is the biggest difference talking about these cameras. So, I just think Sony is so far ahead. They had it with the A9, and now they've done another leapfrog again with the A1. Like I said, this camera at this stage is not for me. And I really mean that, because for me, the megapixels are too high. I don't want to be shooting, Drew said, David, you're alive. I don't want to be shooting 50 megapixel stills, and I don't want to be shooting in APS-C mode, because you lose that full frame look. And that's one argument that people often say, well, you can shoot 35mm mode and then you get 20 odd megapixels. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to shoot in 35mm mode. I want to shoot in full frame when I'm doing it. I want that true depth of field if I'm shooting 1.4. So, and also I like that wide look that I get. I do like to try and shoot, like I said, quite wide. So I'm not interested in that. So at this stage, I'm not saying I'm not going to get it, because if my A9 died, depending on what happens with prices, it might be that I've got an A9 II, or it might be that I'll get the A1 sometime next year. I'm definitely not getting it this year, but it might be that I'll get it next year and then just have it for the video aspect side, and then I can take some shots that I think I might want to print up massive file sizes with the A1. I think at this stage, I would probably recommend, unless you really are have money to spare, I would get two bodies instead of one. And that's why I think I would probably get something like an A7S III, and I would get an A7 R3. That's what I would recommend to get. You only know if you need the power that this camera has got. Like, you'll only know if you need the 30 frames per second, the 50 megapixels, and also the 8K. If you don't need that, it might make more sense to get two separate cameras, because you always need a backup. If money's not an issue, well, then I would jump at it. I mean, I would jump at it if money wasn't an issue for me at the moment. So that's talking about the 8K. So I wanted to talk about that you're future-proofing the camera by having the 8K. It also gives you that ability to crop in if you do need it. And yet, like I said, you can go up around 700%, which is incredible what you can do with 8K. The issue is you would have to have enough room for storage and things like that. So that's that story. But now I wanted to talk about the reviews, because I noticed the reviews are all in. Let me just switch to here. And there's stacks of them that have come out. I watched Gordon Lang's this morning. His was a really good review. And I also, Gerald Undone always does amazing reviews as well. I watched his talking about it as well. You can see there's millions now that are all being shared. Like I said, you do have to be careful too what you believe at the moment, because like I said, all of these people are said these by Sony for a reason. And they're obviously not going to say anything on the negative side of things at all. So you do have to take it all with a grain of salt. But I'm going to discuss what I've seen so far and give you my opinion about how they look and the things that I've sort of taken note of. And like I said, once I get my hands on one, I'll give you, I will give you a truly unbiased review like I did with the A1. If you go back, I talked about some of the faults and things like that, but I'm sort of thinking that this probably is going to be just an incredible release. I don't really think there's much that they could lie on or really... Well, I'll leave that until I get there. But let me talk about anyway what they're saying. The 8K obviously is amazing. So all the reviews that I've seen, the 8K just looks beautiful. But do we need that at this stage? No. There's how many 8K devices have we got out there? Not many. In fact... you still have most people using 1080p. So I would say at this stage, the main advantage is to shoot what I need, and what most people probably all they need is 4K 60. And even that at this stage is still over what most people will have. I'm now going to shoot 4K 50. Remember, I'm in PAL. I'm going to shoot 4K 50 all the time. And then I'll downsample to 1080p probably. I also would like to give the clients, like that wedding video or the pre-wedding video I did for them that I showed you before, I would like to give them in 4K so that they can be future-proof later on if they want to watch it on their 4K television. So I'm probably going to deliver now 4K 25p so then I can slow down the footage. And that's really all I've ever wanted. The footage is just absolutely stunning and I'm so happy with it. But this does future-proof you for the next 5 years. I mean, who knows what we're going to be in 5 years' time. 8K may then be the standard that will be shot and then you've got that ability and you don't have to upgrade. So that's one great advantage. Also, it looks like the 8K footage, even though it's 420, looks like it's fine. And everything I've seen with that footage looks beautiful. So I don't think saying that it's going to be 420 seems to be an issue at all. And in fact, the 4K footage looks gorgeous. Even though there was everyone saying it's binned, and it probably is binned, the 4K footage to me looks stunning. And I've seen that there was a few reviews where they showed it side by side against the A7 III. In some cases, the A1 looked better than the A7 III. And low light is outstanding. And I don't know, Sony have done some voodoo things here because it's 50 megapixels. But some of the reports online were saying that the noise was better up until 12,800. But then I've watched others where they were saying I would shoot no higher than 400 and then it starts to degrade. So this is why I'd like to test it myself to see what real world, samples and stuff like that I can get out of it and what the real ISO image is like, compare them side by side. So that's really interesting. But it looks like the ISO on this is way better. Well, I shouldn't say way better, but it looks like it's definitely better than the A7 IV. And that's incredible, really. I mean, I know it's less megapixels, but it is way better than what the A7 IV does. The autofocus too looks like it's incredibly better than the A7 IV, which is terrific too. The tracking in this thing looks nuts. It really does look incredible. Now, how much it's better than an A9 II or an A9, I'd like to try that myself and to see. It's so easy when you put it onto a screen and then you look at it and you go, wow, that's incredible. But I'm wondering whether if you used an A9 and then this straight after, whether you would really notice a difference. And that's something that I would like to see some examples of being shown. And I haven't seen anyone show that yet because I've found my A9 never misses. But that's something that's really interesting. I'm just looking down here too. No rolling shutter. The rolling shutter on this looks terrific. And I noticed even in video, it looks amazing as well. It's definitely better if you go to Super 35 mode than it is in full frame. So that's one thing about this. The rolling shutter is probably not going to match what you've got in the A7S III because you're moving those, that many megapixels around. But it looks like the rolling shutter is really well controlled, and that's fantastic for something that can shoot 8K. And in fact, the results that I've seen in the 8K footage of this look terrific. Like very little rolling shutter. It was much better than what the R5 had, for instance. And this is all the stacked sensor and everything that's sort of coming into play here. What else have I put down here? No problem at all with the buffer. The buffer looks like it's terrific. Yes, it does fill up eventually, I think after, I can't remember, a few minutes, but it clears so quickly now and it keeps shooting. So it's not like it used to just stall and then you couldn't use it anymore. It just seems to be that it keeps shooting. It'll slow down a little bit, but it looks like it's fantastic. So to get that performance, you are going to need the CF Express A card. So that's something that you do have to take into account. And I think if I was buying this camera anyway, I would be buying CF Express cards with it, because just to have the best that you've got, and if you do need 30 frames per second, g'day Panda, if you do have 30 frames per second, you're probably only going to get it with those cards if you want to keep the buffer so it's not filling up. So for sports photographers, for instance, or dance, shooters and things like that I did, I would be getting CF Express A cards. It looks like you don't need them for any of the video modes. So obviously it doesn't give you the really high bit depths that the A7S III gives you. So that looks terrific. No rolling shutter at all in photography, so that's one big advantage, say, over the R5. The R5 will do 20 frames per second, but you do get rolling shutter. This one you'll get none. And it also has that ability to stop banding because it changes the exposure, your shutter speed automatically to sort of filter that out. But I've never had an issue with my A9. So, that's one great thing about it. In fact, they really could have kept the mechanical shutter out of this camera, and I think this is the future way Sony's going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if the next version of this camera does away with the mechanical shutter completely. So I think that's probably the way that this is going to go. Cheers, everyone. Which also is great because the camera doesn't wear. And that's one terrific thing about this, that if you use mechanical electronic shutter, there's no real wear and tear on your camera at all. Like we know the A7 III has issues with the shutter. Even though this mechanical shutter will be rated for probably 500,000 images, I rarely use my A9. I only use it for flash. Well, you don't even need to do that with this because you can shoot 1/200th of a second in electronic shutter. So I think with this camera, you would really have no reason to shoot mechanical shutter at all. And that's the way, like I said, I think this is going to go for the future. I do believe the next one won't have any mechanical shutter at all. What else did I put down here? Yeah, the stills look great in JPEG. We haven't been able to look at RAW photos yet because of the picture profiles or the profiles aren't put into like Lightroom and other programs yet, so we're only looking at the JPEG files. It looks to me like the color science is the same as the A7S III, which is beautiful. The A7S III, I think, was the best straight out of camera JPEGs that I've ever seen, and I think this probably would match it. There's no way I think Sony would have gone down on that, so I would think that the JPEGs are going to be terrific out of this, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the RAW version goes. Pixel shift looks like it does a really good job, but remember, you can only do that if you have totally static images, and I think it does up to 16 images, but for some reason Sony don't allow it to combine those images in the camera, and I don't understand that because Panasonic does it. I'm not sure why, because obviously the processors in these cameras are incredible, and they don't sort of show that as well. Sid said Sony is getting closer to what a global shutter might look like. They are. And in fact, Sid, I don't even know if they need global shutter anymore, the way that they're going with these latest sensors and stuff. So who knows? 500 for the grip, yeah. So looking at the reviews, I think it's only positive at this stage. Like, I do think, looking at everything that I've seen, there's nothing that really disappoints me about this camera at all, apart from the crappy back screen that Sony keep putting on there, and I don't understand why. I don't know. The fold-out screen doesn't bother me at all. I think for what this camera is, the fold-out screen is terrific. It does put me off a little bit from buying it because I love the A7 III screen coming out so much, particularly when I stick it on a gimbal and things, or go down low and I can have, you know, that screen folding out, or if you're in real awkward positions. But for what this is marketed at, they still are pushing this, even though it's got ridiculous specs for video in it. They're still marketing it more as the photography camera. That's why I think you're finding that the flip out screen is not on this camera, and I think that may be a good solution, because it is a weakness point if you're dealing with the way, say, sports photographers and people like that work with these cameras. That I think that's not an issue, but Sony should have replaced that crappy 1.4 million dot screen instead of the 2.whatever million dot screens that the other cameras are using. The EVF looks outstanding, better than the A7 III, and the A7 III is unbelievable as well. Like I said, the tracking has been improved as well. So, I mean, it's just a winner, basically, in every way. What else was here? I noticed too that this was an interesting part to it as well, that the Sony Alpha 1 is going to be used in the CBS Super Bowl. They're saying here that they're going to be putting it on their gimbals, basically. It's saying that CBS Sports says that the A1 will likely see itself on the field in the Movi Steady camera rigs that have been providing an unusually shallow depth of field of both touchdowns and sideline activity. So it's amazing that they've immediately jumped onto this. And they're saying down here that they did used to use the A7 IV, but they're saying the operator has been blown away by how cool it is. So in other words, they've probably already got a sample. How the autofocus is, says Cohen. He said it's amazing because he literally just touches the screen to select the subject that he wants to focus on, and it instantaneously locks in focus. And he also said down here, this praise for the A1 isn't a feature unique to Sony's latest flagship cameras, but the hype surrounding the camera that boasts both 50 megapixel still image capture and up to 30 frames per second with 8K video capability. They're just basically saying it's hard to ignore, you know, and it's just incredible when you think about it. Now, to continue on this too, before I summarize everything up here, they're also saying that the Sony A1 could open the door to full-size computational photography as well. And this makes complete sense to me, because this is basically doing like what an iPhone does, which is talking about, you know, when you press the shots and then it grabs the photo that it thinks best and it just delivers that to you. And there's all other things that they're probably going to be able to do with this. And there's a whole article, and I'll stick all these articles down below that you can have a read of this. But there's a whole article sort of talking about how they believe that there's a video that you can watch from Chris Nichols and Jordan, but they're saying that they believe that, you know, you're going to get this sort of technology where, you know, they're selecting images you'll capture on the fly, and then it'll give you the image you want. AI is going to become more and more important, and it's going to be used more and more. And I think they have to do this to combat phones. And the A1 is probably the first one that can do it. In fact, they're saying that the A1 is faster than the iPhone 11. The iPhone 12 Max was the first time a new large sensor had been used in a device for a long time. There's just a whole stuff they're talking about here and saying how computational photography is going to be the future, and they think the A1 is the way it's going. So I just wanted to show you that. So let's summarize for everyone. Okay. Am I going to get this camera? At this stage, no. And that's also because of monetary issues. Like I said, I've got a business that I've got to run, and I can't justify at this stage to go out and spend 10,000 Australian dollars, which is what it is, to get that camera, because I don't need it. This is the thing that you have to understand if you're thinking about going out to get this camera. There's nothing that could beat this camera, and I want to point that side of it. There's nothing on the marketplace that could beat this camera if you're after a one camera that could shoot everything, and that's talking about video. It's also talking about stills with everything in it that you could ever want. There's nothing out there that will get even close to this camera. But what I have to say to you is, you'll know if you need this camera or not. You'll know if you need 50 megapixels. You will know if you need the 8K sensor, the footage. My recommendation at this stage is actually, yeah, it's 10,000, Jesse. It's crazy how much we pay over here. My actual thing that I would think at this stage is you may be better off to buy, say, an A7, if you were just in video, you might be better off to just get an A7S III, and then you can buy a beautiful G Master lens with the money you're saving, or even 2 G Master lenses. That's one way that you can look at doing this. If I'm saying if money is tight and you haven't got, you know, like this amazing amount of money sitting around that you can go out and buy this. Or if you're like me and you shoot weddings and things, you could get 2 bodies for the price of 1. And that's very important because you do need backup of things, and you might have, say, one of these cameras on a gimbal like what I do. My A7S will be on a gimbal, and then I can take it off and just shoot video as well, handheld. But I would also want the A9 to be shooting my still images as well. So it's important to have 2 cameras, because you could buy an A9 and the A7S probably for the price that I would buy one of these cameras. And I think for me, that is just not on at this stage. If money was endless for me at the moment, I would buy one of these in a heartbeat. But I think people need to take a breath and just think about whether you need this at the moment. And that's why I'm saying just be careful. If you don't need it, it might be that you buy it and then you're going to think, well, I just don't need what this is giving me. I could have got basically the same from an A7S III and an A9 or an A7 IV or whatever. Just think about that. I may get one of these, which could be late next year. Like I said, I think if I had the money at the moment, if I had funds now, I would buy another A7S III. And that's basically what I would be, I would be saying. Like, I definitely would be probably getting another A7S III, because I love that camera so much. I've already got an A7 III, and I've already got an A7, an A9, and then the A7S III. And Kerry has another, she has an A7 III as well. So I think that's probably what I would do. I'd buy another A7S III if it was me at the moment, because it's much cheaper, and I'm happy, completely happy with, absolutely amazed actually with the footage that I can get out of the A7S III. I do love the low light that the A7S III gives me as well. The 12 megapixels, I did a whole video about that, and the images look stunning. So if you can use, and no matter what anyone tells you, I've proven it and I've shown you the photos, you can use the A7S III as a stills camera. Everyone has become megapixel mad, crazy in fact. I used to shoot everything on a Nikon D3S, and that was 12 megapixels, and I used to shoot weddings on that fully. What you can't do on a 12 megapixel camera is crop in much, and that's something that you've got to consider. I don't crop in post. I nearly always capture the image exactly as I want it. And I do that because I hate cropping, and it's just takes so much time to go through 2,000 wedding images and crop all the time. I hate it. So I always crop in camera. So the look for me is nearly always right. And 12 megapixels, I can get a 16 by 20 print. That's all I ever need. And to be completely honest with you, all my clients now really get is the wedding album. They're not buying prints anymore. I sell so few prints. All everyone wants is a wedding album, and they also want to have images they can share on social media. And a 12 megapixel still is ample for all of that. So don't let anyone tell you that a 12 megapixel camera is no good for stills. It's a lie. I think we've just become too hooked on being able to crop in post. Yes, if you do want to crop in post, the 12 megapixels is no good. So if that's the way you shoot, it's no good. But I'd be completely comfortable shooting a wedding with an A7S III, completely comfortable with it. So I think that's what I would do. Also, it might be a good idea too, unless you have a lot of disposable income, to just wait and see what independent reviewers put out about this camera when it comes out. That's another thing that you could decide as well. But we've got to the point where, and I'd love to know too in the comments down below, do you think we're at the point where it's, we just haven't got the diminishing returns of almost upgrading anymore, because the cameras are getting so good? And this is the incredible thing about this. Like, it's become to the point where, any of the latest cameras, like the A7 III up, are just outstanding, And the other thing too, I've noticed a couple of people, the other thing too, you might want to wait and see what Sony also announced with the A7 IV as well, because I think you are going to find that the A7 IV is going to be unbelievable. My prediction is, remember what they did when the A7 III was released? I think you're going to find that the A7 IV is going to be unbelievable. We're still a few months away from that yet, so it's not going to take the sales away from the A1. And I don't think Sony cares too much about that, to be honest, because they didn't care about the A7S II when the A7 III got released, did they? So, you know, it's an interesting scenario. So I think we're in for such an amazing time. Yes, the A9 does look like a bargain. The A9 and the A9 II now are unbelievable. And you know what? I would still buy an A9 in a heartbeat. I love my A9, and I would still get that tomorrow. If my A9 broke and that was all the money I could afford, I would get another A9 tomorrow because I love them that much. You know, and you'll probably find, I'm not sure about the price and I'd love to know your opinions too. Do you think the A series will drop much? I'm not sure they will, because this camera is priced well above where they're sitting. So I'm not sure that we're going to see much of a movement in the A9 series cameras coming down. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Obviously, if an A7 IV comes out, the A7 III is going to drop incredibly in price, and that's going to be great for people that are just coming in as well. So let me know what you think about that summary anyway later on, but I'm going to keep going because I've already been on an hour, because I just wanted to show this Sony poll, because they're also saying that Sony will announce 5 cameras in the coming months, and they've put a poll out here to say what would you like, and I'll just show you what the poll is showing, what most people are after. They're after, obviously, the A7 IV. That's got the most votes, which is 29%. The Sony A7 R5 was next in line. Sony A7000. Do you believe there'll be another APS-C camera? Not sure. But, you know, I still love the A6400. That's what I'm using here today. The Sony RX curved sensor camera. That could be the one where they do produce that curved sensor. Who knows? They might put that in the A7 IV. We don't know, do we? Sony A5, Sony medium format camera. I think that is still possibly on the cards. Remember that the Fuji sensor that's in the Fuji medium format is a Sony medium format. So Sony could do that. I don't know if they want to get into that marketplace, but boy, that would be an interesting one if Sony wanted to go into that marketplace. A6700, obviously Sony Alpha drone camera, RS100, etc. So there's a few cameras here anyway. They're saying, I will let you know my choices. He said Sony medium format. Yes, I like the new GFX100. It looks great, that camera. It really does. And I think Sony should do the same. They've already got the sensor for it. It just depends whether they would want to be doing a new mount and everything else and producing things for that camera. Sony A7 IV, it's about time, Sony. Like I said, I think we're going to see that announced mid-year sometime. And then it'll sort of probably come out September, October, November. Sony A5 999 will be a killer. And the Sony RX curved sensor is another one. So I just wanted to throw that up there. I think the next release we're going to see is the Sony A7 IV. I think that's probably the next camera that will come out with the RX camera, probably. I'm going to keep going because I've got stacks to talk about here. Sony now holds 42.6% of the full-frame camera market share in Japan. They're just kicking goals, aren't they? They really are. And I don't expect the Sony A1 to really sell like incredible amounts. I think it's just too expensive. So I don't think they're going to sell massive amounts of that, but they certainly would sell huge amounts of the A7 IV. And that will be coming sometime later this year. So the money or the amount that they've got at the moment, the 42.6% is going to jump even more. You can see Canon is second at 31%, and Nikon is down to 21%. Nikon's in trouble. I hate to say that, but yeah, they are. They're actually in trouble. And to sort of join on to that, they're saying Sony's financial report is plus 20%. Now, that's everything. That would be PlayStations and everything else. But this is why I laugh when people say Sony's not a camera manufacturer, they're an electronics company. I think that's a good thing. I mean, how stupid are people saying that that's a bad thing? I think it's an amazing thing because it means they've got all of this money for research, development, and whatever they want to do. So Sony's profits are up 20%. And if you think we're in that, you know, the virus year that we've had, that's incredible. It really is. And good on Sony. I'll come to Q&A after these next two bit of stories. Tamron, looks like they've patented 2 new lenses. They've done a 90mm f2.8. I bet that will be incredible. I'm excited about trying that. Obviously, I'll get that. I've still got the 17mm, the 17 to 70. I'll have to put out some video because I did that wedding that I showed you earlier. I took some shots with that, so just wait for that. It's beautiful, that lens. It really is beautiful. And also a 2470 f4. Well, not so keen about that one, but who knows how good that's going to be. It'll probably be better than the 2470 f4 version that Sony had, though, which was ordinary. I had that lens and I hated it. But if that's a nice lens all the way through and it's cheap, it could be a great lens for something like a gimbal or something like that. The 90mm f2.8 macro is terrific, and I'm dying to try that one out. And then lastly, before we open up to Q&A, saying how Nikon's struggling, well, they've closed 2 Japanese camera lens manufacturers as the market shrinks. Like I said, I came from Nikon, and it's very sad just watching what's going on over here, how they're getting rid of their workers and everything else. And I don't know how Sony are going to recover, to be honest. I'll stick this link down below so you can have a read of that as well. But, you know, I mean, Sony made some major mistakes when they went into the mirrorless market. They took too long, Nikon took too long to get in there. That was their first problem. And then their problem when they went in is because they gave a really handicapped camera coming in, only having the dual card slots, not even giving the ability to put a battery grip on and things like that. They really shot themselves in the foot. And I think it's really hurt them now and they're in trouble. So let's open up to Q&A before we finish. So let me scroll back and see if anyone's got questions. 500 for the grip, I read that before. What else? Thankfully, it uses the same grip as the A7, the S3 and the A7R. Yeah, it should use the same grip, yep. I've never had to use the grip for extra power. I always thought most just picked it up for the better ergonomics. I've got the grip for my A9 and the A7 III. I never use them. I find I like the camera the size it is. Panda said, who is getting out of their house by their wives? Did you pre-order? No, I haven't, mate. I'm not getting it. Kerry would kill me. I can only assume Sony purchased 5 million of those back screens. I know, they must have a factory load of them. Who knows why they keep using them. Sid said, honest question, David, how much better is the menu system? Much, much better, Sid. I love that menu system. I struggle now when I go back to the A7 III. The Sony A7S III is... I really like it, actually. I think the menu system is terrific. I really do. Is there a technical barrier to why Sony don't pull the ability to shoot in smaller RAW sizes? Well, it does take processing, but I'm sure they could probably do it in the cameras that they've got. For some reason, they don't want to give it to us, and it's a real bummer. I mean, that is one of the things that I really wish. I would love that camera to give a low RAW version, say 30 megapixels or something. That would be unbelievable. Like I said, for me, 50 megapixels is not good. I mean, I shoot weddings, I shoot events, and mostly portraits and stuff, and 24 is perfect for me, really, for what I'm shooting. I don't really need any more. So, like I said, I don't crop in camera, so for me, it's that sort of size is beautiful. That's one thing that they may bring out another A9, because they might want to have another A9 that gives you, say, 30 megapixels instead of the 50. That could be one reason why they will bring out another A9. I think 50 megapixels for most people is too much, but I know a lot of you love resolution, and this is the decision you have to make. For me, I just don't love resolution, because I like to be able to work quickly on the computer. I like to be able to scroll through the photos quickly. I don't like to take up too much room. So 24 for me is ample, and I think 24 is a sweet spot. I wouldn't mind 30 because it does give you a little bit more of the ability occasionally if you wanted to crop in. But I really wouldn't want to go much past 30 at all. So 50 for me is a bit of a... It's a bit of a downside for me. But like I said, you'll know if you want 30 megapixels, 50 megapixels or not. I mean, only you can make that decision. What else have we got? But you need resolution also for 8K too, don't forget. I think you need 30 odd megapixel, isn't it? I can't remember what the exact amount was. So you do need more resolution if you want to use 30 megapixel, 8K. But I'm also not interested, or it might be 40, I can't remember. I'm also not interested in shooting Super 35 for stills as well. I like the full frame look. So, yeah. I'm not taking it away from the camera though. Like having 50 megapixels, 30 frames per second is incredible, but you would know if you need that or not. That's why I've never bought an A7 IV, because of the resolution. I just don't need it. What else have we got? Did CBS get the camera? They must have. Yeah, they must. If Sony had put out an integrated grip on it, they would probably jam 2 cheaper CF Express cards in there. Sneaky, sneaky. Yeah, it's interesting. I think people that shoot Sony like the size. I love the size of the camera, so I'm glad that you can just put a battery grip on it. It gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you the ability to shoot without the grip and have that nice small form factor. If you want to have a larger camera, you just screw a grip on. I don't know why people whinge about the camera body being too small. Stick a grip on it. It gets rid of that completely. Type A only costs more because they have, yeah, that's right. It's because Sony are the only ones making it at the moment. It will come down eventually if Sony let that be produced by other people. Who knows if that will happen though. Sony's desire is to stay more compact than a purpose-built-in grip. Yep, and like I said, you can always add a grip if you want to, so I don't think it's an issue. G'day Langston, how are you? The Happy Clan said 30 frames per second raw, 50 megapixel would make the ultra high resolution video. What else? 30 frames per second only works with lenses. Yeah, it does. You have to have G-Master lenses. You've got to have the latest lenses, like the 70-200 will do it. You know, the 24-70 G-Master, all those lenses will do 30 frames per second, but no third-party lens will do it. Even some of Sony's lenses won't do it. Like the 55 won't do it. The GM lenses, I think all do. I think all of the GMs do. But Tamron won't do it. You get 15. Sigma won't do it. You'll also get 15. Remember too that you only get 50 megapixel too if you're using the compressed RAW. $10,000, yep. I think it's 10,200 or some ridiculous, or 10,400, I can't remember. That's a GM 12K. I know, it's crazy the money we're paying over here. So 24 GM, no it does. The 24 GM does. It's not the linear motors, it's actually the GM. Lenses give you the 20. Well, I'm not sure if they'll all give you 30. That's still got to be tested yet. I know they all give you 20. I need my A6000. I want one of these. Panda says, someone donation 30,000. I have 3 already. Yeah, it's just like your original A9 would only fire 20 frames per second on the newer lenses. Yeah, exactly. Wait for the A7 IV. That's not a bad thing. Look, if you're not in a hurry, I do think the A7 IV is going to be incredible. The newer 100 to 400 probably will. Yeah, I'm sure it will. The 135 GM did though. Yeah, remember it's a GM lens. I think all the GM lenses do. I don't know if they'll shoot 30 though. That's going to be the interesting thing. I don't think anyone's pointed that out yet. Japan as a Jared Poland's always bitching. I'm not sure what that meant. Hopefully some of this tech goes into the next generation. It will. A lot of this tech will go down to the A7 IV. And we don't know how much is going to be in that camera yet. But a lot of that tech will go down there, that's for sure. I mean, I think you'll definitely get the tracking and things like that in the A7 IV. I'm not sure if they'll do 8K, but I certainly would do 4K 60. And that is ample for most people out there. Hopefully Sony will give us a new 70-200. They need to. They need to upgrade the 70-200 and the 24-70 GM. They also need to update the 85. Sony should also be bringing out a 1.2 lens. That's where Canon kills us at the moment. I know we have 1.4, but I want that 85 1.2. And, you know, Canon's lenses, there's just nothing like them out there. And that's one thing where they do beat Sony. You know, we just haven't got, yes, there's 1.2 lenses, but there's nothing out there with the autofocus like Canon have. And Sony can do it. We know they could do it, but we just haven't got anything yet in that regard. I think, you know, probably, I mean, we have got Sigma that do the 35 1.2. That's gorgeous, that lens. I just wish Sony would produce some. I've always, used fill the frame. I'm betting the A1 will be 1,000 off with the EDU discount in 3 to 4 months. That's another reason too. See, when I bought my A7, the A9 here in Australia, it was $7,000 when I bought that here in Australia. 12 months later, it was $5,000. There was a $2,000 drop in 12 months. I'm not going to lose that money again. It's too expensive here to be doing that. So I'm going to be waiting. I mean, look, if it drops, it doesn't matter to you if you're not going to sell it, does it? Let's face it, if you're going to keep it for a few years, who cares if it drops that amount? But I just don't want to be paying that full amount again. I mean, if I buy this next year, it'll probably be down to 7,000 or something. Excuse me. What student needs an A7 IV? Yep, or A7 R5. A9 looks like a bargain. The A7 III is so good for most people, for hobbyists like me. The A7 III is, I love it. I absolutely love that camera. G'day, Michael. How you going? The A7 R3 is 2K. It's great. The A7 R3 is a fantastic camera at that price range. It really is. Really underrated, actually. I mean, it's amazing, that camera for that price. I think the used price will drop. Do you think Sony didn't put the nice OLED screen because it can suck out more battery power? No, I don't think so. I think it's more to be the fact that they've got millions of these things and they just want to get rid of them. I'm not sure why. They really do need to update that screen, though. So no A1 this year, but what about an A7 IV? No, I won't be buying anything this year unless a camera breaks. Remember, I've only just started after 12 months off. I've had no work for 12 months due to COVID, all right? So I don't want to be buying anything unless something breaks. If something breaks, yes, because I have a need to. But apart from that, no new gear for me this year at all. I won't be buying any cameras this year at all. Next year, probably, yeah. Because I'll have money saved away. Remember, as a business, I have money there, but I don't want to be spending in case if something happens again. Like I've got to be careful with how much. See, it's easy if you're an amateur photographer and you've got a full-time job. It's easy because you've got that, the job that will back you up, and you can go out and pay for that. Because I'm full-time, I haven't got that luxury, so I have to make sure I have enough funds in my bank account in case if things go wrong. And that's where it gives me the luxury of having, like I said, the last 12 months or whatever. Well, I don't want to ever be in that situation where I think, oh my God, So what I would suggest to you is there's no way I'm taking it out on finance. There's no way I'm going to take out a $10,000 camera on finance. No way. Unless I can pay cash for it, I'm not getting it. What else? Drew said, I think it's a cost-cutting thing. Even a new screen costs the same until it requires more R&D. Rice said, I agree, I bought the A7 III, but I was worried about the 12 megapixel stills. 12 megapixels is perfect for posting online, which is where most of my content is posted. Exactly. And you know what? I've done tests too. You can actually use something like Gigapixel or whatever it is, the Topaz software, and you can blow that thing up to ridiculous sizes. I blew up an image that I did the other day. It was an image that I took with a G9, I think. It was a Panasonic camera that I think was around 9 megapixels. I can't remember. I used the Gigapixel or whatever it was called, that software, and I went up to 20 by 30 inches in size, and the image looks beautiful. So if you can go 16 by 20 on a 12 megapixel size, if you use something like the Topaz software to blow that up, you'd be surprised what you can get away with. But like I said, I don't sell many prints now. Some of you might be lucky and they still are. People, for me, are not buying prints apart from their wedding album. 12 megapixels is ample for the size of wedding albums that I give, and it's also fantastic for social networking. And most of the people that do their own prints print out stuff by 8 by 12, and you've got ample resolution for that. So yeah, I think 12 megapixels is fine. Like I said, unless you're cropping. If you're going to be doing cropping, it's no good. Thumbs up, everyone. Yeah, love it if you could give me a thumbs up too, guys. It does make a difference to the show, that's for sure. I'm late, but has any mentioned the Sony A1 shutter closing? That is one great thing. It does. It closes. So I think you can have it the way it is now, where it'll stay open. You can have a setting like that. You also have the setting where it can close. I'm not sure I like the idea of it closing because I don't know. I'd love to know what you guys think about that. I would be worried sometimes that something is going to get in there and then jam it. I just don't know if I would probably use it, but you can let me know. I've never really had an issue with dust because I always change the camera facing down and I always blow it with a rocket blower. So I don't know. To me, it could be something that breaks. I don't know. I'd love to know your opinion on that. But it has got that setting, yes. You can turn it on or off. I think it's an option. Yep, it certainly is. You can toggle it on and off in the menu. Mark said, next thing is David needs suggesting on how to break his camera in order to upgrade. No, I wouldn't do that, Mark. I've just got to be sensible, honestly. You just have to be sensible now with what's happened. David, if something breaks, laugh out loud tomorrow. Funny it broke. I need an A1. Oh, boy. Dominic said, any idea who made a video about it? I only noticed in Dan Watson's video. What was that about that closing? It definitely does it, Dominic. We're afraid, we become afraid to buy something expensive because technology changes. It does. I've never worried about that, though, because I'm always happy with what I've got at the time. Does the A7 III have the ability to block the sensor? No. I'm not sure whether they can do it with firmware or whether it is just a software thing that they have to put in. I'm not sure. But it doesn't do it, no. I think the A1 will drop after the Olympics, but more so it is a halo model. A 10K camera is there in part to make 4K cameras seems like a bargain. Maybe. Camera Rambling has also said, Corona has knocked us all for six. Buying gear at the moment for me would be crazy. I've had no transition into photography from being a full-time musician. So far, the A7 III has paid for itself 10 times. Yep, like I said, if you have a business and you are relying on the photography business solely, unless you have lots of funds, I wouldn't be going out buying gear, that's for sure. Dominic said, literally, we said, okay. Only the A1 and the A9 too. Yep. Drew said, I don't like it personally. Glenn said, so why does Sony cannibalize their cameras? The Alpha 1 will be replaced next year. Isn't Sony telling us that their cameras aren't that good and have to be replaced every year? No, they're not telling you that, Glenn. I suppose what they're doing is they're just basically, people love to buy new gear. And that's the thing. I love buying new gear. If I had enough money, I'd buy a new A1 or whatever they release every single year. So good on the people that can do it. And I have to be honest with you, most of the people that buy this sort of stuff are not people that are running photography full-time, because the people that are running photography full-time can't afford it. It's the amateurs, like I said, that have second jobs that can supplement what they're buying. They're most of the people that, some of you may hate me saying this, but I'm telling you, a lot of photographers that have businesses are still running old Canons. They're still running old Nikons. They're still running old Sonys, because they haven't got that ability or the funds to keep buying new gear like that. And that's a fact. So Sony are probably selling a lot of their stuff to amateurs that have second jobs that can afford to buy this gear every year. You know, they're the sort of hobbyists that have disposable income. If you've got a job, a full-time job doing photography at the moment, I wouldn't recommend you to be buying this sort of stuff. Like I said, I would recommend, if you have the money, to buy 2 camera bodies. Buy an A7 III and an A9 or something like that. Get 2 bodies if you're in a business, if you need that. I wouldn't be saying go out and buy an A9, an A1. What else have we got? This I know, but a difference in the bokeh side or quality accept image pixels or become 1.4, 1.8, anything's thought. Yeah, there is a difference, definitely, if you go 1.4, like even 1.2. It's much nicer, it's much softer. Beautiful David, I don't switch lenses like a madman. Yeah, lenses are far more important, guys, than bodies. Lenses will always make a bigger difference to your photography than a body will. Always. If you've only got so much money, buy glass. It's like I said to you, if you're in the US and you've only got $6,500, that's it, your budget. I would definitely buy something like an A7 III and get a beautiful couple of G Master lenses as well. I mean, that's the way I would be working, unless you've got a lot of, disposable income. Yeah, I don't get much dust either, Drew. I'm always careful. I'm one of the lucky ones that shop real estate, so I've never had a day off. Yeah, some people are. And like I said, if you can afford it, it's fantastic. The closing shutter has never been an issue on my R5 or R6. Michael said, I did my first billboard. It hangs over the freeway. Massive. It's the best feeling in the world. Oh, fantastic, Michael. Take a photo and share it with us in my photography group. I'd love to see it. Carlos, do you think the A9 III will inherit the better shutter and faster readout sensor of the A1? Well, I'm not sure there's going to be an A9 III yet, but if there is, yes, it probably will. And now, look, there may be an A9 because I think they might want to bring out a lower resolution version. That's probably what I'm thinking. I have a portrait shooting friends who got hit hard, however, yeah, that's the problem. A lot of them are. A lot of the businesses have been hit really hard, that's for sure. No, Glenn, it's just the new business model, just like Apple and Samsung. It's the new norm. Yep, constantly upgrade, you make more money. You can lock the sensor down by pulling out the battery at the right time during taking a shot, by the way, on all Sonys. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do that though, Mark. Kind of, it's honestly the same thing as cropping after the fact, but it doesn't write the data, so you save more space. So I should sell my A9 for the R4 for the A1. No, unless you have a need for what the A1 has. If you don't have a need, then keep your A9 and the R4, definitely. The other thing too is you're giving away 2 cameras to get 1. I don't think that's a smart thing to do. So unless you need something that the A1 has that you haven't already got, and really apart from 8K, what is it? I'd be keeping the what you've got, unless you want to shoot 4K 60, obviously, yeah. Dominic says, as we all think the A1 is the be-all and end-all, we still have to remember they are releasing 5 more cameras this year. What in the world are they going to do? I know. If you care about my opinion, a backup camera is worth far more than a really good camera. It definitely, Drew. If you're doing weddings particularly, or even portraits, if you go out on a paid portrait shoot and you've only got 1 camera, it's crazy. If that fails, you're in trouble. I've dropped cameras and it failed, and I had backup cameras, so I was lucky. What I really want is a Porsche to go with the A1. I love it. I see. Thank you in advance. I would love a study on sensor dust. I never get it, but some people complain it happens all the time. Probably technique. Yeah. Like I said, if you change it with the camera always facing down, use a dust blower, be sensible about where you change the lenses, you're usually okay. That's another thing too why I like multiple bodies with lens on them and I don't change as well. Drew said, congrats, Michael. I know, how good is it that he had that done? It didn't, I don't much either, Drew. Sometimes maybe a spec every couple of weeks. And Michael just said, yes, that's great. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for today. It's been a great discussion. If you have any thoughts about what we've been discussing today, leave them down below. I mean, it's been a really interesting chat. I've really enjoyed it, actually. Leave them down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Apart from that, guys, I'll see you all in the next video. Catch you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
If you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over, we can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide.